Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. Will everyone stand for the pledge to the flag, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. Commission members should have, let the record reflect the members present for roll call. The commission members should have received the draft minutes of November 26, 2018. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
No, sir.
I'll move for a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes for the draft minutes for November 26, 2018, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Action items for tonight is review and comment for pending PZA case 2018-208 needs crossing variance request for a reduction rear yard setback, multiple lots. Jim, would you lead us off, please?
Sure. With the Meads Crossing with Meads Crossing in general, you'll recall that the lots are somewhat smaller than our typical lots. With the townhomes, the design that was approved has a 2-foot jog between units, and a lot of those townhome clusters, or sticks as they call them, have that kind of stair-step effect through the whole block of townhomes. So the first unit in a stick may have plenty of room for a deck on the back, but then as you go 2 feet back and 2 feet back and 2 feet back for all the units, that last unit or two is going to have much less of a rear yard. And the developer would like to be able to, or the builder would like to be able to put a minimum of a 10-foot deep deck, or be able to offer that on all of the townhome lots in the community. And thus, to be able to do that, they're going to have to encroach beyond the rear yard setback that was agreed to with Meads Crossing for their community village modifications, where they modified the area table on the yard setbacks and such. Some of these will have to go closer to the rear property line than we envisioned with that chart. Hopefully that summarizes things well enough. If it does, I'll turn things over to either Bob Ward Homes or Steve with Meads Crossing.
Okay, do you have a number? Multiple lots. How many are we talking about?
Let's see. I don't have the total number here. They're all
Wasn't it somewhere around 72? Is that right or not?
I think you're probably
detailed in here.
Let me, if I can,
Okay, please come.
I'll start and then you can clean up. So, Steve Smith with Meads Crossing. What really brought this change on, I think is a big positive. When the Ryan product was approved, that was 28 feet deep. And this is the new townhouses that Bob Ward's building are 32 feet deep. So bigger house, more square footage, more value. And but when MRA, the engineers, set it up, they really set it up with the Ryan Homes product in mind. So it's kind of the domino effect. We get bigger houses, then we have to come back and ask for permission for variance.
Okay.
I
Any comments, George?
noticed that there's some not included in the variance.
Yes.
What about them?
Are just bigger.
Pardon?
Some of the yards are bigger, George, just because the lots are on an angle and they naturally have. So and Dave probably never commented this to the market, but they felt it was important that with a townhouse like this, people are using the deck more than they are the yard.
I'm sure of that.
And so having a 10-foot deck, as you can imagine, if you have a 6-foot deck, you can't do very much out there. 10-foot allows for a pretty nice.
What will it be without the deck? What, you just have steps down If you don't have a deck,
Yeah, and I think you intended, is our deck standard, do you know?
They're not standard, they're optional, so, they're optional.
I'll let you do this.
well, they're extra.
They're extra. I'm Dave Cahill with Lockport. I was a community sales manager for the townhomes at Meads Crossing. So the decks are optional, but you know, in some cases, as it is right now, you might only have 3 feet or 4 feet from the back of the townhouse to the 20-foot setback. So that would only allow a 3 or 4 foot stairs down the backyard and not really a deck opportunity. So as you can imagine, from a selling standpoint, people are interested whether they buy the deck through us or whether they're going to put a deck on at a later time to have a deck that's of a size that they can use and put a table and chairs and grill out. So it create a undue hardship, you know, both from the sales and marketing standpoint, but also from a potential future homeowner to say, hey, well, you can only put a 3 foot, you know, landing out the back of the first floor of the townhouse.
Would you just clarify something for me? If I remember the drawings, they were just flat in the back. So now you're saying if there's no deck, it will be a set of stairs?
If second floor up,
Yeah, the dining area, dining kitchen is on
The second
the
floor.
second floor.
So
Right.
if there's no
Deck.
deck, it'll be a stairs.
Right, and then, so let's say you want to grill something out, you're gonna have to carry all your food down a flight of stairs.
I understand. I'm just visualizing a set of sliding doors or a door with a 2x4 across it that you can't use because there's no deck or no steps. But you're saying there will be steps or a deck? One or the other, right?
No, I want to be clear.
You're not saying that?
So, no, there's nothing standard. So we'll have, if there's a sliding glass door, a safety rail across the sliding glass door, unless they purchase something through us.
you have to purchase the steps too.
Right, correct. Correct.
So what's a means of egress from second floor?
Front door.
That's the only egress.
I thought that was the original idea, is only the front door.
The front door's not on the ground level.
We also
Yeah,
have,
it is. Front door
we
is.
then have a ground level access as well.
That goes into the basement, garage.
Yes, yes, sir.
So you go up 1 story to get to your first floor.
Okay.
How about my 1 or 2-year-old child that I have and want to go out the back door and into the lawn? What about that?
Buy a set of stairs.
Well, how about if you don't have them when you build the house? You don't have those children.
Build a
Buy
set
a
of
set.
stairs.
So the only door out is the front. Am I correct?
No, the cellar.
No, you go down.
There's one coming out of the basement then.
Yeah.
So one of the townhouses in the middle, they can get to their backyard by coming out the back of their house.
That's correct. Now,
Okay.
out the back standard is a window, a regular 3050 window.
Excuse me?
Out the back of the townhouse at ground level is a 3050 window standard.
Fire rated. That's
They can
fire.
upgrade to a 9-light, service or 3-foot service door, or to a 6-foot sliding glass door.
And that window's in the garage.
I'm sorry,
That window is in the garage.
behind the garage. So there's a door from the garage into the foyer.
Right.
But in what would be the finished rec room area, there's a window in that rec room area.
So standard house, no extras. They can't get to their backyard without going around the stick. Is that correct?
Correct, unless they
In the
purchase.
middle, you can't do that.
Well, that's just going to open us up to easement issues like we have over in whatchamacallit. You know where I'm talking about.
Yep. We're just thinking.
Well, I'm just going to say it. That's just poor planning, in my opinion. I mean, you're just opening up neighbor arguments left and right. I understand we're off topic right now. I get that. But that just has to be said in public.
You might want to go back and review the, and I did not think ahead to do this, but we did discuss the access to the rear yards on the townhomes. And again, I apologize, I didn't dig back into this before the meeting, but my recollection was we had talked about fences, and the fact that some of the lots butt up against each other without an open space area in between, so that, you know, the townhome owners wouldn't be able to fence in their backyard because it would stop other townhome owners from being able to access their backyards.
Well, I knew that you couldn't get into the back without going down either stairs or a deck. I did know that from the beginning.
I didn't realize that either.
Well, I did. That's why I voted against it.
The one thing that softens this a little bit is that because, if you'll recall, we have exterior lawn maintenance is being done through the HOA, and because of that, there are no fences.
Yeah, because the question was asked, what about the contractor that had the dog that went to work at 6 o'clock in the morning? We will get rid of the dogs, what you said. I remember that. That was rude.
Well, I don't think I said get rid of the dog.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't have said that, because we specifically do allow invisible fence. So somebody in the townhouse that has a dog can still let it out in the morning.
I'm sure if you ask Joey on the council, he'll tell you that.
So you're saying that there'll be no privacy fences or anything like that?
Correct.
Nothing in there?
Nope.
Correct. I think we allow, and I have to think about it, but my recollection is we allow a privacy fence that can extend 10 feet. You know, so if you're sitting on your deck, you don't have to look at what your neighbor's having for dinner. But you can't fence off the yard.
But the privacy fence will be off the deck,
Correct.
provided they put the deck.
Because they're mowing it. They are mowing it for the
Yes.
people.
My
Excuse me,
concern,
hold on, I didn't hear what you said.
They are mowing it for the people. That's why they don't want no fences.
my concern was that a family with young children, 1 and 2 years old, that wants to go into the back, it's very dangerous to get there. You're going to have to really have a deck to start with for safety reasons. Stairs not going to work for kids.
Well, the deck's still gonna have stairs that go down.
I know it.
Well, not necessarily.
That's an option, right?
That's not necessarily
That's an
true.
option.
That's an option.
If you can't afford the deck, you're only going to have steps.
If you can afford the steps too.
You know.
So, sir, I'm a little late in this project, but that's not really an excuse, but the first floor, your option on the rear of the building is a window,
Window standard,
a slider,
slider optional,
or door.
even service.
Again, it's before me. I don't know how that ever got through any body of people. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. The difference between a window.
These houses has been changed and changed and changed again. Everything's been changed so many times.
Well, that always happens, but I mean, really, from a safety standpoint, you can throw yourself out the window.
Well, if I can interject here, keep in mind the lots were approved before the townhomes were approved.
Right.
We don't approve building plans. So if a proposed house fits on the lot, or as we're seeing with the request for the deck, sometimes we're looking at, as Steve said, a bigger home than was originally envisioned. But we don't approve floor plans. We did approve the elevations as far as, the aesthetics of what the townhomes and the single-family homes will look like, but we don't approve building construction drawings. We don't approve, approve the layout of the home. We just approve the aesthetic of what the facades look like.
Right.
So it's, with regard to the backyards and access to the rear yards, that is going to be up to the buyer. They'll have the option of, and I'm thinking back to when I bought my first home here in Taneytown, it had the pressure-treated 2x4 and the little 2x2 slats across the sliding glass door on the back, even though it was 8 feet above grade, so it was up to me to either, option the house to have a deck or build a deck when I could afford it, which I did, and that's, it's not unusual for the deck to be an optional feature and for those, sliding doors to have a safety barrier up if the buyer doesn't, choose that option. So I think we're getting a little beyond the scope of things right now. But as far as access to the rear yards, we did talk about the lack of fencing and, that the homeowners wouldn't be able to, fence in their rear yards in part because of the lawn maintenance that's going to be provided by the association.
We knew that.
Let me go to the county side of this. Is it a normal practice for a developer to do a group or request a group easement for something like this? Or it's actually not an easement,
Variance.
but to come into the county as a lump sum of X amount instead of an individual homeowner coming in asking for, what am I looking for here?
What's the setback?
A setback.
Right. I don't know that I've experienced a entire subdivision come in at one time. I mean, I have experienced individual lots, but and that would be more of I feel like that would come more through development review than planning. So I don't know.
And what's unique about this is that this may or may not ever happen with some of these townhouses. This is it's on the books in case they ever decide to do this.
Think of it like enabling legislation. It opens up the door for the option so that the home buyer will have the choice of having an optional deck or perhaps building one down the road if he or she think that they might, they can't afford it right now, or they don't want to include that in their, in their mortgage financing, but they may want to build it 5 years from now or something. So it's really just enabling, the minimum 10-foot size deck for any lot that somebody could want to put one on.
I don't know the legality of this, but now's the time to do it if you're going to do it, because it's going to save those homeowners $600 to put a deck on their back of their house when that time comes.
Well, not if we do this in bulk. And that's what he's asking for, to do it in bulk.
And it saves them in the future from having to,
All those $600 individually as the time goes by.
well, and just the process for the Board of Zoning
Right.
Appeals.
Right, exactly.
Go ahead.
I'm going to blunder, but, and I can't, and I'm putting this on Bob Ward, and I'm doing it in this setting, but it seems to me, I'm concerned about the rear access as well, and it would seem to me that there ought to be some form of rear access that is provided from day one.
Exactly.
And if that means that instead of a window, it's a door, it still gets them out to the backyard. Now, again, I'm sorry to be saying this now. Not by decision, so. I know, but, and I don't think, I can't say we can require them to do it, but I would like to go back to the Bob Ward and find out whether they would agree to that. And that way, if somebody wants to do a rear deck with steps down, they can just have a window at the ground level. It just seems to me that for the length of the project, you got to be able to go out back. And,
Right.
Are all those doors, if they were in the back, would they be at ground level or are some of them underground level now?
they're all ground level.
They're all at ground level.
Just to clarify, you're saying at least a 10-foot deck, not a maximum 10-foot deck, is that right?
That's correct. Somebody, if they don't encroach, they can have a 10-foot deck. If they're allowed to have more because their yard is deeper, they could have a bigger deck.
So what's the magic setback number we're trying to hit here to make this happen?
Well, you're hitting, for the ones here, the most they can have is a 10-foot deck.
Right.
And then for the other lots, if you've got a 20-foot yard,
Well, right, I'm just talking about specifically what we're asking today. I mean, the other ones can already have a deck, correct?
correct, and they
Okay.
might be able to have a 12 or a 14-foot
Right, but in this case, because we're not seeking a variance for those, we're just seeking a variance for these.
Variance, right.
Are there some houses that could do a 12-foot because their townhouse is 2 feet further forward than the one next to them, or?
The way I believe this is written, it allows these specific lots to have a 10-foot deck. It doesn't allow them to have a 12-foot deck.
Well, the reason I ask is it says to allow at the least a 10-foot deep deck with a maximum of 7 feet of projection on into the setback and a minimum setback distance of 13 feet only where applicable. So, can you put that in different terms that sound a little less convoluted?
Of the lots that they are seeking the variance for, a 13-foot rear yard setback would be the minimum. The standard setback for Meads is 20 feet. So there are homes, the largest variance being requested is 7 feet. So without the variance, that home could only have a 3-foot, and that may not even meet code, 3-foot landing without a variance.
So if we look at lots 7 through 12, and you look at the 5th townhouse in that stick, with a 10-foot deck, that would be 17 feet. But you're saying minimum is 13 feet, so,
Lot number 11?
I'm sorry?
Lot
Yes,
number
lot
11.
number 11, thank you. So you're saying they could put a 14 by 10 deck on that house?
Without the deck, their rear yard setback is 27 feet. So they could build, without the variance, they could build a 7-foot deck and then meet the 20-foot rear yard setback.
Got it.
So with the variance, they can build the 10 by 10 foot deck, and that would make their yard 17 feet. So their variance would be basically a 3-foot variance. So they're supposed to have 20, they would have 17, so their variance
Right.
would be a 3-foot variance for that particular one.
I got you,
And Jim,
okay.
so, and I think I know where Brad's headed with that. So they couldn't build a 12-foot deck there, because they're
No, no.
they're held to this
Right,
drawing.
right. They would, should a homeowner
Okay.
come in, right, should.
Well, and that's why I asked the clarification of where it says on the front page to allow at the least a 10-foot deck.
Right.
I'm making sure that we are approving up to a 10-foot deck.
We
Is that
can-
correct?
Yes, and we can certainly advise the Board of Appeals
Right.
to ensure that any approval is that the motion, references the exhibits provided and so on, so that it, that way, rather than having to go through and say, I approve a 3-foot variance for lot number 17 and a 4-foot variance for lot number whatever, they could refer to the exhibits, and that will lock in the specific approved reduced setback for each lot number.
Okay.
Now, as the years go by, there's going to be some case come up that this is not covered. How are we going to handle that?
They'd have to get a
We
variance.
always miss something, everything you do.
I don't doubt that in the future, someone who perhaps buys one of these units that has the variance to be able to do the 10-foot deck may want to come back and come in and try to, remove that deck and replace it with a larger one, which would be doable if they wanted to go through the variance process again to request a larger variance to enable the bigger deck.
One of the lots.
So there would be a process, but it would be, again, something I guess we're, that the builder and developer are trying to avoid by, it would be coming through, having, a hearing for each individual lot as, as time goes on.
And likewise, if we missed one of the lots, they would have to go back
Yeah.
to the process. Open that.
I guess the ones the lots that are gonna be 13 by 20, whatever it is, that's not much of a backyard. My living room's bigger than that. So I guess I really have a concern about what do you have? 4 or 5 that was 13 by 20 or something like that?
Right.
If you're there and you want to use your yard or something, then you have a smaller deck.
Or the single-family home is more of what you should be in as opposed to a townhouse.
And if you want a fenced yard, you're going to go to a single-family home.
Right. I mean, that's one of the advantages of this development, is that it does offer each of those options to them.
And keep in mind, you know, we're not talking about a room addition or something that's going to really eat up yard space. You know, we're going to have, I mean, a 10 by, and I'm not sure what the width would end up being if they're, I mean, 10 by 10 is what's pictured here. You know, you're going to have probably 2 4x4 posts coming down to the ground. It's not like you're giving up 100 square feet of your yard. It's just going to be, you know, shaded by the deck. So it's not, you know, it's not eliminating 100 square feet of an already modest yard.
There'll probably be 6 by 6 posts
Yeah, the
coming
upright
down.
should be.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, if they do the deck, you build a deck for them, do you gravel under the deck? So it's just grass? Okay. And that doesn't cause issues with, I guess, a better question for you would be, does that cause the issues of obstacles for your lawn contractor then?
It's just going to be part of the.
It is what it is, okay.
Wasn't there gonna be a pad out back at least when they walked out the back door from the cellar?
If they had a back door,
They have a back door.
Talked about that.
if they had a back door, they would have a
Well,
cement
they're all
pad,
gonna
right?
have back doors downstairs.
No,
No.
We
that's
just
what he
covered
said.
that.
none of them.
That's not what I understood.
For individual 1 foot, 1 foot.
Right.
Concrete blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I went online, it showed a window downstairs, or you can do a slider, or you can do a vegetable 3-foot door, I believe it is.
That's sad.
Okay, so actually what we're looking for tonight is be able to make some type of comments to the B and Z Commission, either favorable or an unfavorable recommendation. What if, and I'm saying if, what if we would give them a favorable, provided they provide an egress from the first floor to the back?
Well, first or second floor.
First floor,
Downstairs.
because if you're second floor,
Finished
you've
room.
got steps to go down to go out.
But if
And you
you're on the second floor and you want to go out,
You gotta go downstairs, but you,
outside.
but you gotta get to the backyard. It doesn't matter where I'm at in the house, if I wanna go to the backyard,
I got to be able to get there.
I gotta be able to get there without going around 3 or 4 other houses. And you know what's gonna happen, when you get around that first house, you're gonna cut across somebody else's yard.
Yeah, well, that's the only way you get there.
So, I just put that out, what's
Yeah.
the thinking of the commission?
I think that's a reasonable request to make, if the BZA were willing to support that.
Jim, any thoughts on that? And I'm just putting that out there, there's no motion or no recommendation yet.
Right. Of all the nights for Jay not to be here, I don't know if that is within their authority to require the rear exit or entrance, you know, for the townhouse itself.
How does Mr. Smith feel about that?
You can't say Bob Ward has to.
If you got an answer, go to the mic so we have it.
I can't expect him to commit to that.
I don't think I can say one way or the other than I understand what you're saying. And yeah, it's obviously their call. I would agree with
When you say there,
I-
who's
I-
there?
I would agree with that, but.
It's his call?
Well, it's Bob Ward Company's call, and if they want to, you know, when they get before the Board of Zoning Appeals, you know, they can decide whether they want to do that or not. I don't think it's unreasonable, but I leave it there.
You mean no comment?
No, that would be marketing management and Bob Ward himself, they can make a decision.
Because there's some economics involved there that you'd have to look into before, right, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, Well, I don't have a problem with the decks so much as I do the easement to the back. And to make it simple, if the first floor had a opening to the rear, that makes all the sense in the world to me. So I understand that people may build a deck, but I wouldn't want the steps to go downstairs. You know, down to the floor is just a horrible maintenance thing, blah, blah, blah. They're gonna look horrible in 5 years. But if there's an entrance to the rear of the property from the first floor instead of a daggone window. And again, shame on some of the builders for coming in here and doing that kind of stuff, because it makes no sense to me at all, zero. And it's frustrating. It's just a dumb thing to do to people. I didn't say make it $1. I'm all about sales, but that just doesn't sound safe at all to me at all.
If you don't have a rear door, you can't get to the backyard because you ain't gonna go through my yard to get there.
Well, yeah, I had a townhouse. I still have it, but it's a war with people going through these yards. It's yeah.
Right.
And
Jim,
there-
any comments?
One concern I have is it's basically impossible to get a 10-foot deck on the back of a house unless you have a set of steps going down the back. But you don't use your steps. You have a 10-foot deck from the house, then you have to have a 3-foot set of steps somewhere.
You do or you don't. You could have.
Well, that's the thing. The only way
without steps.
the only way you're gonna get a 10-foot deck out of there is not to have the steps,
Right.
right? If you want the
You're right,
steps,
thank
you're gonna have to take a 3 feet off your 10-foot deck to make it 7 feet now, with a set of steps going down into the yard.
Or,
Yeah.
He's right.
you put a, you come off the side.
If you have extra
It
room in
still
your
comes
house,
out of 10
Yeah,
feet.
because you got a 20-foot wide townhouse, so if the deck's 10 by 10, you still got room on the side to run the stairs closer to the house and down to the back.
You'd most likely need a landing and turn the steps.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd be, I think, to be a full floor down, you're gonna need a longer run than 10 feet.
Yeah.
So we'd probably have to have a landing and a,
the deck would
turn.
be built to the floor level of the first floor.
Your
Right, or
townhouse,
second floor.
you can
Right,
at least
right.
go out and you got a place.
So,
So I'm looking for a recommendation from the commission,
Up.
either one way or the other. And we'll let Jay and the Board of Appeals members make a decision. But let's give them a recommendation from the Planning Commission.
for the sake of the people looking to buy the houses, I make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation. I do encourage the builder to consider, as an olive branch of the BZA, having that first floor ground level exit from the back of the house. I think that olive branch may work in your favor far more than you might expect.
No, I'll pass that along.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll
I need a
second.
second first. Second? Okay. Mr. Smith?
I would just ask if that could be footnoted if they are providing deck access to the ground, whether that would be favorable. And you know what I'm a little bit worried about is if somebody has a security issue about having a door at ground level, and you just don't know how to, I agree that, I think it's reasonable request to be some sort of rear access to the yard.
Well, most houses have a door to ground level.
Right.
The only reason I'm second that was that I'm thinking about saving $600 to every one of those property owners years down the road.
That 600 is gonna get higher years.
That's right. But every one of them is gonna have to pay $600 if the city doesn't approve them doing this.
Okay.
From a selling standpoint, it's one thing if I can say to a homeowner, we've obtained a variance and you can have a 10-foot deck versus as it sits, you can only have a 3 or 4 foot wide
Right.
platform and you have to apply for a variance and there's no guarantee that you can get the variance. It's
Right.
pretty difficult to sell.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Would you repeat that motion again?
Well, my motion
Your
was,
recommendation.
it was simply to give a favorable recommendation to the BZA.
And my,
Everything I said after that was a message to them.
and my second is to save $600.
I'd like the BCA to hear that. So I would like to include that so they hear.
The minutes
What we're-
will, the minutes will include that,
The minute will-
and that's what will be passed on to the Board of Appeals.
Okay. Any more discussion from
What's
the
the-
board?
What is it, one more time now, they
Favorable recommendation.
Favorable recommendation. And then in the minutes, it's gonna say
Do
about the
what?
caviar of putting the, or the alleys.
Well, it just
State-
simply,
State what you're, what you're doing.
That there be a means of egress from the first floor
that's,
to the backyard.
and that's simply my request to the builder to consider bringing that to BZA. And that'll be in the minutes, but it is not a part of the motion. That's aside to the builder.
Do you agree to that, George?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Since you said, so we all understand it? Jim, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Both Jim, okay. All those in favor of that recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Those opposed?
opposed.
Okay. That's two of us that oppose,
Okay, you and Ollie, okay.
yes.
Okay.
Because I would like to have something there about egress out of that back.
Well, even though this gets passed, someone's going to get overlooked in this process, and then it's gonna come up again. Something will come up.
Well, if
Okay.
it's,
No doubt in my mind.
if it's outside of
You got that
this,
information, Jim?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, folks. I can't remember, but I think I counted 72, I might be wrong, units.
right,
Because there's a total of, what, 100 and some. But they all don't apply.
About 8 o'clock.
There's 135 down
Okay.
all right.
Next item on the agenda is ordinance and agreements for review. Ordinance 07218 zoning map correction 2019. Jim, would you get us on that, please?
Yep, a copy of the ordinance was included in your packet. Yep, there it is. This essentially includes properties that have been annexed since the map was adopted in 2010. We've annexed a number of properties since then. This will bring them in on the zoning map, and the new map also corrects the 2010 map's omission of properties between Mill Avenue and the railroad tracks. There's not really a name for the alley. That are beyond one parcel off of Baltimore Street. So those properties are already zoned downtown business. The ones to the rear of those were supposed to be zoned from industrial to downtown business, but we missed that on the 2010 map. So this map corrects that error as well. And there will be a public hearing at the Mayor and Council's January 14th meeting. There's not going to be a workshop, which is typically when the hearing would be scheduled, so we're going to just have one meeting on the Monday night this month, and the public hearing will be held then, and it'll be up to Mayor and Council at that point. But of course, you get the opportunity to make a recommendation one way or the other to them.
So this only addresses the properties that were wrongfully zoned on the previous map. It does not address the ones that have been annexed in.
It does include the ones that have been annexed in.
Just
The
on-
the ordinance doesn't speak to them
Right, okay.
specifically because their annexation agreement specified the zoning under which they would enter the city. So there's not a,
So their inclusion on the
right.
map
They're
is
just being
sufficient
included
for
on the
that.
map now, right?
Okay.
They are already officially zoned R10,000 and open space and general business as part of their annexation agreement.
Okay.
But they were just never added to the map, and this will add them.
The parts of Mead's Crossing, aren't there parts of that that are open space? That have to remain open space?
They are not, they're considered open space parcels, but they are not intended to be zoned as open space.
Which means,
Right, Meads has R10,000 zoning, And yes, the use of the term open space probably is a little confusing there, because it is the same as our zoning designation. But when we talk about open space parcels in Meads Crossing, it's more recreational space or undeveloped space. It's not necessarily going to be turned green on the map.
But is there anything that prevents it from being developed in the future, specifically? If it's not designated as open space?
It's not designated as a lot, as a buildable lot on the approved construction, on the approved plans or plats.
Okay.
So it would have to come back before the planning commission if for some reason, if down the road
In 20
we
years?
were, out of land, we couldn't grow out anymore, and we were looking for redevelopment opportunities within existing communities, that's something that would have to come back before the planning commission.
Okay.
Right,
I wasn't
because
sure which agreements we had with them would have spelled that out specifically, or,
the plats don't have the open space parcels recorded as lots, as buildable lots.
okay.
They're also, we'd have to go in 20 years, go back to an active HOA and say, can you give us your land? Because it gets deeded to them. It's HOA owners.
Right, but if, that's the question is whether the HOA decides they want to do something on those lots.
They can come back and talk.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Right. Theoretically, it could happen.
Right.
But I think we would have to be in a situation where land was scarce and we had that kind of demand to make that a worthwhile effort. But theoretically, it could happen. Okay. So do you want to make a recommendation to the mayor and council on this one?
Yeah, we do. Would someone like to make that? That it's,
I recommend that we approve the changes on the map.
is that sufficient, Jim, or you need something else?
Yep, that's recommending approval of the map and zoning ordinance is adequate.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Any comments? Okay, all in favor of that recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, It's unanimous. You want to continue on then, Jim, with your report?
Yep. Well, as you, I'm sure noticed, I did not do a written report this month.
Yeah, I don't have a copy.
So just some quick updates. I expect that we will have the preliminary plan for Monocacy Crematory Services. There was a plan in your packet,
Yep.
but we'll have the formal presentation of that on our month-end meeting. We also have a concept for the first phase of Bollinger Park that CDM Smith, our engineer, has developed, and that should be on the 26th agenda as well. So that is moving forward.
Is that 28th, right?
Yeah, the next meeting would be January 28th.
I didn't pull up
That's okay.
That's
last
when it is,
Monday,
28th.
our regular Monday meeting at the
Okay.
end of the month. Let's see. Not a whole lot new to report as far as the construction phase projects. Meadowbrook has been chipping away. They had a pretty good December. Only one so far this month for Meadowbrook. Let's see. Meads Crossing is continuing to progress. They have connected to the city's systems now. They made the connection at the end of the Meadowbrook end of Crimson Avenue, which is where Meads connects into the rest of the city. So that is moving along. And things have been pressure tested and everything, so it's looking good. The pumping station out there is still a work in progress, so I'm sure we're all hoping that that's going to be completed long before we're ready to talk about UNOs for any of the model homes.
As
So
an update, the pumping station should be completed this month. We're actually paving tomorrow, from just over the stream crossing, will extend over to Meadowbrook. There's a little section that we may have to leave out waiting for a storm drain. But we should have blacktop access into Meadowbrook as of tomorrow afternoon if it doesn't rain more and more and more.
Okay.
It's been terrible this fall.
Well, rain tonight.
Night, isn't it?
But we're making progress, and it's good. We'll probably we'll stop our site work for the year in the next week or two, with the exception of finishing the pump station. I don't know if anybody's been by to see our entrance. We've done a good bit of planting there.
Yeah.
And working with Mr. Austin, that's turned into a very good relationship, I'd say.
Great.
We also, in response to the neighbors meeting a couple months ago, I did meet with Don Brower, and we planted about 100 cedars on his property where he wanted them. And so they sit at the top of the hill, and it'll block his operation. So
What about the Angel Road connection? Has there been any further discussion with them about that?
no,
Okay.
there's not.
Very good.
In my personal feeling, if it's as personal as, I think there ought to be a left turnout and you can come in, unlimited access. Nobody needs to go to the right, in my opinion.
Right.
But I think that ought to be a secondary access that allows people to get out on 194 and to come in from that way.
Right. But something that would discourage a right turn onto Angel Road, right?
And
Right.
I wouldn't have any issue with that. And if you all decided you wanted to leave it both ways, that's fine. We always look at compromise.
Well,
I don't think blocking it is the right move.
right. I don't think the city was ever instructed to make a decision on that. Wasn't it just left to you and, okay.
And it becomes a master plan issue, I believe, because you do have access that gets there.
Right. Right. I mean, what was approved was consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the one thing that Crimson Avenue was shown extending all the way up to Angel Road for the past, 20, however many years. So, approving Meads Crossing with that connection was consistent with the plan. I don't know that we would have had any serious issues, had we chosen not to make the connection, but we would have been looking at something to, effectively amend the plan when we would have approved Meads. But the way it is, the connection shown on the preliminary plan, unless during the next phase, unless you guys choose to do something different, the connection's there.
Well, if the connection is made, however, made in a way that discourages the right turn, is that still acceptable?
That would still meet the objective of the comprehensive plan, sure.
So if, as it approached Angel Road from within Meads, it just naturally jutted, maybe some spikes on the side, or
and again, this is we do need to be careful that I would think that if we were talking about right turn in, right turn out, ingress, egress kind of thing, that's pretty straightforward. You've got a median, or you funnel the traffic based on the curve and so on. And you perhaps even like East Baltimore Street by Sheets, you could even have a median to discourage people from, crossing over to make that left turn. Encouraging a left turn exit as opposed to a right turn may be a little bit more cumbersome to do. And also we have to keep in mind that whatever is engineered is going to have to meet, traffic safety standards. So we don't want to, unless we're willing to just, prohibit right turns, which I don't know if we would really
You can't
want
just
to do
right
that.
well, I mean, you can. It's just that people, they don't always
Right,
obey it. I mean,
right.
I think of when you leave Safeway onto WMC Drive next to the Burger King. It says no left turn, you can only go right, but,
Right, sure.
people do it
Yeah.
because they're lazy.
And you can do it out there
You
too.
get
just
to
like-
change, you
but-
get to
You might have
changing
a
too
left
much
turn
out there and
only.
making it
But
too
any
hard, you're gonna
attempts
have
to
wrecks.
discourage I think would be encouraged. That's my only thought on that.
And that's something that we can talk about in greater detail when we start looking at the next phase of Meads, where, you know, I know.
Because that connection is in the next phase, right?
Yes.
We need a left turn out
That
there.
connection's needed.
Okay.
So, and one other quick update, Ryan's got 4 houses under construction, foundations are in on all those. And Bob Ward started on his first group of 6 townhouses, and the footers are in. They should be coming up out of the ground any day.
Okay.
And they've accepted a contract on their first townhouse.
That's good news. Okay, anything else, Jim?
No, I don't really have any more. We'll have more detail at the end of the month on
Okay.
things.
Anything from Jay?
No, not this evening.
Okay. Claire? Yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 updates. The first is the filing complete of the water and sewer plan. Planning Commission sent that to the county commissioners in December, and it's being introduced to the commissioners on Thursday. And by February, we're hoping that it will be through the county commissioners and it'll be sent to MDE for final approval. And that's that. Hopefully February will be could be a little bit longer, we never know. The next update was on the 28th of January. I will be coming before you asking for certification of chapters 3 and 4 of the Bike Ped Master Plan. I've already talked to Jim about that, so he knows. We're just asking that you guys have already gone through chapters 3 and 4 and approved the text and the maps. We're just asking, similar to the triennial update process where you certify the chapters, we're just asking that you certify the information is correct and it's consistent with your comp plan. So I'll have a letter that Jim can put on the town or the city letterhead, and then we'll just ask for certification and a signature.
Would that be a problem, Jim, to have for the 28th? Okay.
Are we making any corrections to our portion of that in regards to Bollinger Park?
In terms of the types of trails,
Because on the county plan, it was specified
right?
concrete, I believe,
Um,
and others in the city are.
Paved, right?
Okay, right.
Right.
But others in the city are insistent that it's going to be mulched. So is that something that we need to make sure is corrected?
Well, we don't have an approved site plan. The concept is going to be before you at the end of the month.
Right.
And I know there are mixed feelings about the type of trails to be incorporated. So we may end up with a combination of a bike pedestrian path on part of the site and a more of a trail on other parts of the path. But the bike pedestrian master plan, and Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more advisory than obligatory.
Right.
Now, that said, there could be implications for grant funding and things like that if we aren't following, to the letter of what's in there.
Right. I'm just saying we're at the
But-
same stage of both, so we either decide, are we going to
And
tell them one thing
right.
and not do? Or-
And in discussions with our Parks and Rec director, the paved paths, what's in the bike and pedestrian master plan is the direction that he wanted to go. I know there are some folks within the city that feel differently. So, development of that is going to come down to it. I mean, this group is going to review the site development plan for the park. So if a paved plan if a paved trails are not something that you want to see out there, it could get interesting. So, but that's the direction we're headed in right now.
Right.
And the Parks and Rec Advisory Board was in favor of the paved trails as well, or the paved paths. So, we may end up doing phase 1 with just a small portion of it being the paved trails, And, you know, we may have to defer additional trails for future phases or something. But,
Right, I just want to make sure that we're being consistent with what we're telling them, that that's actually on the table here.
and that's what's in the concept.
Okay, very good.
I know not everybody's in favor of that, though.
I will add that, a lot of the towns and cities have trails that are in the same, they don't know if it's gonna be paved or what type of surface it'll be. So we often have just filled in to be determined if that's something you would prefer, so it's not one way or the other.
Jim, how do you feel about that?
I'll
Pave it.
follow up with our Parks and Rec director.
Okay, right. Okay, thanks.
That's all I have.
All right. Oh, any other business we need to bring up? Jim, you have anything? Ollie?
No.
Yes,
You're
sir.
gonna ask the audience if they want to say anything?
I have nothing, sir.
Okay. Anyone from the floor have anything they'd like to bring before? Okay, your next meeting is January 28th. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second.
Further discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, carried.
Yes.